And, classic, deeply upset and frightened Greg Kelly. So this will be a good thing for us to look at and see if it plays better than the C-SPAN clip of Trump, which is like 2 hours. So it might have buffering issues of its own.
Clearly, this was a deadly insurrection.
Clearly, they were attempting to overthrow our government.
Clearly.
This is an insurrection.
Last week's insurrection was shocking and tragic.
We've seen an unprecedented insurrection in our capital and a brutal attack on our democracy on January the 6th.
There is a presidential-inspired insurrection. Plain and simple, an insurrection.
The President of the United States incited insurrection against our country.
The insurrection was an existential crisis.
By the way, that audio lag in that was theirs, not mine.
It's a test of whether our democracy could survive.
It wasn't an insurrection.
It really wasn't an insurrection at all. And the Democrats are trying to... I'm working on my Greg Kelly.
Not an insurrection. It wasn't. They are lying / exaggerating to score.
Lying / exaggerating. You know who did some lying and slashing and exaggerating? Some of the insurrectionists.
For political points.
So you're like, one guy jabbed a flagpole into a cop's eye. That would, I mean, more of a stab than a slash, but sure.
Points. It's interesting. We have a huge exaggeration going on and maybe a cover-up at the same time.
Very exciting. A huge cover-up.
About the events surrounding January 6th. I'd like to bring in Tom Fitton.
Well, I'm sorry, you can't. I won't allow it. I'm sorry. You can't bring in Tom Fitton. I know you'd like to, but it just can't be done. I mean, he's far too pasty. There's, honestly, no one has a white balance good enough to get both of you on screen at the same time without blowing out everyone's monitors. I just don't think. All right.
Of Judicial Watch.
Oh God, Tom. I am not here to confine you in your gender expression at all. I happen to think that if you intended to do this, it's fine. I mean, you might look a little mommy dearest, but if you're doing it on purpose, hey, I'm not here to yuck your yum. But too much rouge. Remember, Tom. Whores use rouge, ladies pinch, I think is the phrase around Newsmax. Just ask around.
He's been all over January 6th, and his group has filed several lawsuits, actually,
against Maybelline.
Get important records from and surrounding that event.
I mean, that is some serious powder as well.
Tom, welcome back to Newsmax. How are you?
Yeah, it's okay. Forget the name of your show or the name of your network.
You?
Hey, good to be with you again. Thanks, Greg.
Tom, overall, and I know you haven't, there hasn't been much cooperation from the authorities.
Yeah, no one actually thinks they have to answer to you for any reason.
In giving material, making it available. When they act like this, do you think, in your experience, they are actively concealing something?
Yeah, it's probably that it really was Antifa. A bunch of Antifa people 6 years ago started putting on weight, getting divorced, buying a lot of guns, racking up charges for domestic violence and petty theft, and then went, okay, now we're ready to pose as maggots.
Yeah, hiding.
Is the tip of my nose shiny? I beg your pardon. You're right. It is a bit shiny. I have no makeup on. I'm sorry. I probably, you know what? I should not have made fun of Tony Clifton here. What's his name again?
Records in an unusual way. I think people can fairly draw conclusions they don't want something coming out. For instance, you were talking about the shooting death of Ashley Babbitt. The U.S. Capitol Police has...
Yes, the Capitol Police, which is different from the Capitol Police. The Capitol Police is their jurisdiction is just people's capillaries or their hats.
None of the transparency requirements that virtually every other major police force in the country has.
Yeah, because they're sharing the security personnel and circumstances within the Capitol, that would open it up to foreign entities that might, I don't know, in the future want to destroy our country. And so normally Republicans would be very understanding that we don't just explain everyone and everything that happens within the Capitol from a law enforcement standpoint so as to not endanger them. So they go, oh, who's the hero? So there's like 6 main dudes. Cool. Can we get a list of their names and post them online and then raise their profile a lot so that, if I'm Russia or Iran or ISIS or something like that, I know that snuffing that dude or killing that woman will demoralize and upset the entire group, whether I do it overtly and claim credit for it or covertly in some other way. I can literally upend the security of the nation's capital just by fucking with certain people, all because Greg Kelly wants them named because they shot someone who climbed through a smashed window as they were evacuating the members of Congress during our peaceful exchange of power.
And they've refused to provide any information to anyone asking questions. So we sued directly the D.C. Police Department, which would have done some investigations here, and we're getting stonewalled there.
Yeah, and you should get stonewalled everywhere, especially at that diner where you went in, ordered a glass of milk and 1 pancake. This has got to be some sort of white supremacist troll artwork, doesn't it? It has to be.
We've sued for the videos. We sued for emails of the Capitol Hill Police.
I would sue your makeup artist.
Sued for information about what Nancy Pelosi was up to. I mean, the irony of this whole January 6th investigation is that the subject of the investigation are the decision makers on related to security at the Capitol that day.
That's weird. Really? The decision makers at the Capitol that day let me see if I can scroll. I mean, I've shown this also before already, but let's see, down further. Where's my, let's see, scrolling down. Excuse me 1 second while I'm just looking for something. I'm just gonna, let's try this, do this. Oh, here we go. Like this little piece of information, you know what I mean? If you're like looking for that thing, the temporary. Hold on, let me see if I can blow this up a little bit or something, or shrink it down a little bit. Does that happen? There we go. That was my response, by the way. As I showed this or whatever, the memorandum from the Secretary of the Army that shows that they were, the White House stopped that shit. Hold on. That opened up another window. Where did I put him? Did I close that window? Son of a bitch must pay. That's Chrome. Okay, so I was in Safari, or maybe, hold on. No, there it is. Okay. Recently visited. There it is. I have to reopen this. Beg your pardon. Sorry, everybody.
If you're trying to lose belly fat, stop doing cardio.
Yeah.
This sounds backwards, right? Well,
no, it doesn't.
Believe it or not, it's actually true.
I agree.
Stop spending hours on the elliptical to get...
Clearly, this was a deadly insurrection.
Okay,
Clearly, Nancy Pelosi was up to. I mean, the irony of this whole January 6th investigation is that the subject of the investigation are the decision makers on related to security at the Capitol that day. Riots occur. Violence occurs in crowd situations, oftentimes almost...
Yeah, just crowds. I mean, you and I've been, many of us to, like, I went to Monsters of Rock many, many times, where a band known as Metallica played a song called Damage Incorporated, and a mosh pit broke out in an isolated section of the center stage where people were jumping around and flailing arms and shoving into each other. No one was had any permanent injuries whatsoever. The rest of us all were singing along and raising our fists in the air and doing evil horns and whatnot. Clearly, any crowd that's going to happen in general, like, I mean, look at, honestly, I've seen more violence at a Black Friday sale than I've seen at a Metallica concert. So obviously there's a reason that often some crowds will become violent. One of them might be that the leader of that crowd says, we're going to go down there and we're going to walk down there peacefully and patriotically, but when we get there, we're going to show some strength because these people need to know, and if they don't do what we're saying, well, we're going to be very upset. Anyways.
Almost always.
Yeah, almost always. Anytime there's a crowd, especially a political rally, people are going to walk up to the Capitol and start smashing windows. I mean, it happens every time there's an inauguration. I mean, aren't you tired of it?
Because of political decision-making by leaders who run police departments. And in this case, it's Nancy Pelosi who's ultimately responsible.
Well, yeah, except the fact that they were overrun. They have a limited staff and a limited availability of stuff, and they were denied the right to have a lot of the defensive weapons that they would have had, and the National Guard backup, which they would have needed in this circumstance, was not only denied initially, but delayed on the day on purpose. So obviously, in suing Nancy Pelosi and suing the Capitol Police. But please tell me again how Democrats are anti-back the blue or what have you. That at no point did you sue for a copy of Christopher Miller's memorandum denying the use of the National Guard that day because it's readily available. You don't have to sue it, and it's obviously the reason why there was not enough staff.
For the failures of security that day.
You were the one who uncovered, I believe, the records that we all wanted regarding Officer Brian Sicknick. Now, let's be clear. Any police officer who joins the police department, I think he's a hero. But there was...
Yeah, you think? But, look, anybody who joins, I think he's a hero.
So much misinformation about his death. First, he was, pummeled to death by Trump supporters. Then he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher thrown by Trump supporters. And it turns out he died of natural causes.
Yeah, naturally, if you get hit in the head by a fire extinguisher or pummeled to death or sprayed in the face with chemical irritants and you have a biological reaction to them, naturally, you're going to die.
Do you think that was a comedy of errors, those early reports, or...
Yeah, I think it's hilarious, the initial reports. Now do the cop that was... Thank you, but fuck you for being there, which I think needs to be a country song, and who was tased so many times he had a heart attack, and they only didn't kill him because he said, I have kids, and somebody's, came to their fucking senses. All right, hold on. I think, you have to give me a break here. I know I'm in the middle of a test, but it's worth it to try it. Let's see. Let's see. What's a good one? Let's see. That's in there. Let's see. Yeah, here you go. Here you go. Tell us about this, Greg Kelly.
On the west front of the building, the mob continued to grow, continued to beat the officers as they tried to get in. In this new security video, you can see a hockey stick, a bullhorn, and a Trump flag. I want to show you that same attack from the officer's perspective from his body camera footage.
These are the people that Greg Kelly believes are patriots.
I'm sorry I have to show you the next video, but in it you will see how blessed we were that on that hellish day we had a peacemaker like Officer Hodges, protecting our lives, our staff's lives. This Capitol and the certification process. May we do all we can in this chamber to make sure that never happens again.
Just to clarify, Trump supporters, Greg Kelly's viewers, and people, and quite frankly, he believes that the cops had it coming. So please continue to tell us about how you actually, pretend you give a shit about Sicknick's life, and how the results of being sprayed with a chemical irritant and the beating he took that day absolutely contributed to his death. Fuck you, Greg Kelly.
Active deception.
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, this is all. This was all show. These are all Antifa, right? Right, Greg Kelly. Look at this. You can see these are all. That's a Black Lives Matter Bass Pro Shop hat. That's a. Where in that? Oh, how could anybody think otherwise?
It is the government after all, so you always
It
have
is the government after all. Okay, look, I don't know how this happened, but we have gone from question, like a healthy level of questioning of what government does in our name, and our recognition that there's probably an 80-20 balance, in all honesty. All hyperbole aside, 80% of the stuff that's done in our name as the public, by government, genuinely, and I'm not talking about graft or anything that somebody does that's not the administration policy or the governmental policy of the United States, is absolutely in line with the electorate of the United States. Even the ugly stuff, there's parts where we're like, well, it's not a perfect world, the world is dangerous. 80% of the time, we're with you. 20% of the time, it's below radar or black site stuff, and we are either actively against it or are against it only because it's already happened and we are benefiting from the fact that it had happened, and therefore, since we're alive to appreciate and denigrate what happened, we can go, that was awful what they did. There's a very strong chance I might have been killed if they hadn't done it, but I don't support that. And the only reason you have the ability to do that is because you have the privilege of being alive, because someone else did something awful in your name. That's part of the reality of it. We have gone from the awareness of that 80-20 reality and talking about it like adults and going, we need oversight and we need to make sure that we have a strong hand and a secure hand between what we need as policy in the country and what gets carried out. We've gone from that to the Democrats largely being the codifying force of that 80-20 concept, and the Republicans full on being like Russian disinfo level. The U.S. government is a force for evil in the world, and it's an absolute governmental paranoia. Like just FEMA camps, Agenda 21, like they're going to round everybody up, and they are full on at this point the party of Alex Jones. Yeah. Just for the record. Okay, where did I go? Here you go. I need to move this over.
to presume incompetence in addition to malfeasance. In the case of withholding the information about the actual cause of his death, I think it's fair to conclude that it was withheld for political reasons. Certainly, they didn't want it coming out before the impeachment of Donald Trump. Remember that abusive impeachment? We're supposed to forget that.
Dude, honest to God, if Sicknick hadn't died, for real, if Sicknick had survived or even been hospitalized, do you think all the other stuff that happened on January 6th we'd have just waved it off? Does anyone believe that? Does anyone believe that the death of Officer Sicknick was like, all right, the guy who got his spinal column cracked, and the guy who lost an eyeball, and the guy who lost a thumb, and the guy who was almost tased to death, and the woman who got stomped to death, and who was a maggot herself, and the fact that they breached the Capitol and smeared shit on the walls and stole a laptop. One of the person who fucking stole the laptop tried to sell it to Russia. We would have just let all that slide if Sicknick hadn't had lived. Oh, hi, Bicycle Mike. I went live about 40 minutes ago, something like that. 48 minutes ago. I'm just testing my gear, and I'm glad I did because we worked out something so that tomorrow will work. So, beg your pardon if it's off time or whatever. I'm just doing this little clip on here to see if my stuff works. So, no one believes, and that includes this asshole and Greg Kelly, that if Sicknick hadn't died, we'd have just gone, what impeachment? Or that it wouldn't have been valid or worthwhile to impeach Trump. Like, it's only a real insurrection if somebody dies. And so the implication is that, he didn't really die because of it. So everybody else who was injured because of it, all the property that was destroyed, the gallows they hooked up, the fact that they were marching through yelling, hang Mike Pence, that there were people there looking to shoot or hang or dismember Nancy Pelosi, Mike Pence, AOC, any Democrat, which meant, by the way, any person of color that was a staffer as well, because they would have assumed that person, whether or not they were a staffer for a Republican or something, was a Democrat. They were done for. That's why Ashley Babbitt got killed, because they breached that door, which had been barricaded.
And the fact is that it was only after we sued did the Office of D.C. Medical Examiner finally release the information about
tell us.
About the true cause of his death. He wasn't bashed on the head. He didn't die because he was bashed in the head with a fire extinguisher. He died tragically from a stroke that occurred after the event.
A stroke that occurred after the event. Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't have happened. Otherwise, that would have happened anyways. He was probably he was gonna have a stroke the next day anyways. Nothing that happened on that day contributed to his death by stroke. I mean, he was old, man. He was like 92. He was the oldest Capitol Police officer. I mean, look at it, how gray his hair was. Clearly he was ready for a stroke.
So this is just another example of, obviously I'm president of Judicial Watch, so I'm going to promote Judicial Watch. But
so what? Sorry, Judicial Watch isn't a thing. I know you've bullshitted people into giving you money for a long time, and you have this illusion that you are somehow an equal to the ACLU or something like that. You're not. Judicial Watch is like 9 lawyers wagging their dicks at the courts for conservative causes. You don't do shit. You don't. And the most you've managed to do is draw out the fact that you and Greg Kelly think that Sicknick's stroke the next day after the insurrection was natural and was not brought on by anything that happened on the day, which included him being sprayed with chemical irritants and being beaten.
But isn't it outrageous that this day, which we're told is the worst day in American history?
No one has said that.
It's only Judicial Watch is trying to get basic information about what happened that day.
No. The FBI is arresting hundreds of people, and they are interviewing all those people and taking statements and gathering phone records and gathering interviews. That's a lot of fucking info. You're not the only person who gives a shit about it by any stretch. That's a ludicrous assertion.
About security? About what police were doing?
No, we all know there were issues. We want to know why the National Guard was not allowed to help with that security when Trump knew full well, and it was in his speech, that they were going to march down there, and they had no right to do it. when they crossed the Capitol grounds. The minute they crossed that grounds, there should have been a release of the National Guard. Like, suit up, guys. This is an emergency. The Capitol's under attack. End of story. Hours passed. Hours. That's the question.
About who was actually hurt and injured in the case of Officer Sicknick, if there were issues there. And we're still getting stonewalled.
Oh, so Sicknick probably hurt some poor rioter. That's what we really need to know. That's what Judicial Watch is looking into. Did Sicknick die of a stroke caused by guilt?
Believe me, there are other requests we have pending, dozens of requests, that the police department, the Capitol Police, refused to disclose to us.
Yes, I don't know if you know this, but I've been named as the official spokesperson for the Capitol Police in terms of all dealings with Judicial Watch and Tom Fitton, and I have a statement right here. Fuck you. Thank you for joining us. I will not be taking any questions.
And I'm concerned, Greg, that we're going to get more of the same from this.
I'm concerned that it is Maybelline.
January 6th investigation being run by Pelosi and Adam Schiff. Remember the last investigation they ran? They were taking phone records of American citizens, specifically Giuliani, and then publishing them. Without a court-authorized subpoena. They said they could do it on their own. Are they going to start spying on Americans to just distract from their own malfeasance here?
No, they're not.
It seems like they've weaponized the day. If you raise...
Weaponized the day. That's interesting, Greg, because on the day, Trump supporters weaponized the American flag, you turd.
Questions about the day, or so help you if you defend or say perhaps some of these folks don't belong in jail anymore.
No, they belong in jail.
Or like even Jacob Chansley with the horns. They'll try to say that somehow you had something to do with the insurrection. If you have
no, I don't think you, Greg, you've never actually been useful to anything. You weren't useful in the insurrection. You're not useful now. You have no function. Greg Kelly. No one's going, oh my God, Greg Kelly was behind the whole thing. If you were behind the whole thing, they would have gone to the Lincoln Memorial. They would have raided an elementary school, Capitol Middle School, 6 blocks away. If Greg Kelly was in charge, they would have raided a Baby Gap and wore the suits. This was the fact that this happened, and as successful as it was, even as it was unsuccessful, proves that Greg Kelly had nothing to do with it.
Concerns about the election, fairness of the election in 2020, they're trying to take those off the table by making this the worst day in history and saying...
No one's saying it's the worst day in history. Nobody. I mean, I understand hyperbole for hyperbole's sake, but don't be a dickhead. Have you heard anyone, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, anybody, even the ones who were saying stuff are like, this is the worst attack on the Capitol since the War of 1812, since the Civil War, this is the most, but understanding that the Civil War and the War of 1812 and Pearl Harbor were way fucking worse. Especially things like 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, which I don't know why you're not name-checking those. Oh, I know now, because they actually contradict your idiotic point.
Concerns about the election led to this. It is a...
No, concerns about the election did not lead to this. No. The belief by these people that they could install Trump as baby king is what led them to this. Not concerns about the election. Concerns about the election would drive them to make sure that they, ran as electoral board chairman next time and made sure that there were proper voting procedures in their areas the next time around. Concerns about the election.
A false, weaponized narrative, and I think it's, strangely enough, it's working. There should be about...
Yeah, I'll tell you why, Greg, if you want to know. The reason why it's working is because it's valid, and your point isn't.
Let's face it, 50 other groups demanding the information that you're seeking as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt the Justice Department treats this group of people who they say were Trump supporters, and
they were
Republicans and conservatives different.
Well, I will go with Republicans. I'm sure they all voted for Trump and he's a Republican. I don't know that I would say that, therefore, all Republicans equal that, which is what you're trying to scare all the other Republicans who you think are watching who aren't. I don't even know why I'm arguing this point. The rouge is creeping me out.
When they commit misconduct and violate the law, than similarly situated leftists and communists.
Sorry. Yeah. It is the assertion of Judicial Watch and Greg Kelly that the Capitol is pretty much the same as a Target in St. Louis. What's the difference? Right? What's the difference between a riot that breaks out and a Target or a barber shop or a car dealership or a Starbucks that gets burned, and the Capitol being raided by a political party during the vote certification to stop it from happening and hang the vice president? What's the difference? One, you walk out with more baby shoes than you paid for, maybe a flat screen and a roller and some Gatorade, and you say something untoward to a local TV reporter, and then it burns down, and then Target as a corporation has to file an insurance claim and they rebuild it. What's the difference between that and a bunch of Trump supporters with this asshole in the vanguard, by the way? You understand that the folks like this that were inside the building were the guys at the front who managed to get inside, dragging a cop down a flight of stairs and tasing him until he had a heart attack, and one guy beating him with a Blue Lives Matter flag. What's the difference? What's the difference between the Capitol and a Starbucks? Right, Greg?
In many ways, this isn't even about 2020 anymore, Greg.
No, it's not about 2020 anymore. I mean, it is to Trump and everyone around him, and I mean, it's not about 2020 because it's over, because there is no question.
I like wood.
All right. Oops. Oh, I keep forgetting which mouse I'm using for stuff. That's my bad. I beg your pardon.
It's about 2022 and 2024 and keeping key players off the table and on their heels as they seek to retain and obtain power in the future.
What do you mean? Gozar?
And obviously Donald Trump being target number one.
No. Donald Trump is not target number one. He's target number two, technically. And in the SDNY case, he's like target number 15. They're going after a bunch of people.
We just saw some pictures of guys that we know, Big O at Nancy's desk, and yeah, he's going to be punished, and he already has. He's already spent plenty of time in jail.
No, I don't think he's spent plenty of time. I think he's got plenty more time to spend in jail. And by the way, if he wasn't an asshole and a fuck-up during his bail hearing, he'd be out.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Look, I witnessed violence during the Kavanaugh hearings. I was there in the whole courtroom. I saw it was out of control that day. They were intimidating senators, resisting arrests, and they were treated very differently. And certainly they were trying to blow up the Senate and stop Kavanaugh from being confirmed.
Hey.
Yeah, remember during the ACA when all those disabled people parked their wheelchairs in the hallways and that kind of stuff? I mean, what's the difference? What's the difference between burning down a Target, a bunch of ACA activists, or the ADA people, showing up at the Capitol to do a civil disobedient arrest? And what's the difference between that and this asshole wiping turds on the walls?
We saw
different treatment.
Totally. We saw basically 300 riots for a year, $1 billion worth of damage, perhaps, and nobody seemed. That was all beautiful. That was.
No, actually. One second. I know. I didn't mean to do this as a full show, and I appreciate you guys jumping in here. Since this is working, I might as well jump in here. Let's see. Let's just pick a. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's I've often seen people arrested for things that are beautiful. Haven't you? Protests resume after 120 arrests in St. Louis. Unrest. Protesters chanting "Free Our People" gathered outside the jail in downtown St. Louis on Monday night. Let's see. Maybe there's a. Let's see. Is there a? Let's see. Where else do we do more than? Let's see. Here's a little while later. More than 80 arrested as riot police break up St. Louis protest over officers' acquittal. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Stunning development. City to go. 34. Okay, pending applications of warrants. 5th Street. Okay, let me try Minneapolis, since that's where it all started, right? Here's August 27th. More than 130 arrested during civil unrest in downtown. Let's see. Hold on. I have a hard time grabbing these. That's one of the things I'm going to have to work on as far as being able to see this stuff right here. Okay, whoops. That's not what I want to put it in front. There you go. We'll go back to him. Needless to say, but beautiful. I mean, anytime you have something beautiful, there's going to be 140 people arrested.
It was all beautiful when they took over the Minneapolis police station and burned it down. Remember?
Okay, let's see. Let's see. Go to this guy right here. There you go. Have to grab up in here. Quit this. Go up in here. Grab this over here. Let's see. Charges, police, headquarters, riot. Man, let's try that. Well, this might be a little rough, and this is probably. I think I found out why Greg Kelly's upset, guys. I think I know. Hold on, let me move this page over here so we can get ready. I think I know, because someone was a judge found that someone who set fire to the Minneapolis Police Department headquarters or the police station in the 3rd precinct, I think it was arrested and was charged and fined for doing it, and I think I know why Greg Kelly is upset. Man fined $12 million for police station arson during George Floyd protests. Welp. He clearly looks like Black Lives Matter all the way. A man has been ordered to pay $12 million for his role in setting a Minneapolis police station on fire during rioting last May. The fine for Dylan Shakespeare Robinson, 23, who pleaded guilty to an arson charge in December, will follow a 4-year prison sentence. His lawyer said there is no realistic chance of his client being able to afford the fine. 3 other men who also pleaded guilty will be sentenced at a later date. What happened at the police station? In May of last year, thousands of people took to the streets. Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was fired, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Floyd's death and subsequent protests triggered weeks of unrest. Among the demonstrators was Dylan Robinson of Brainerd, Minnesota. Brainerd, isn't that where... That's where some of the people in the movie Fargo lived. A town about, I'll go check the darn cars. According to prosecutors, Robinson lit a Molotov cocktail, which another person then threw at the Minneapolis 3rd Precinct headquarters, setting the building ablaze. Surveillance video at the precinct shows Robinson lighting an incendiary device held by another person and later setting a fire inside the station near a first-floor stairwell. Mr. Robertson chose to depart from lawful protest and instead engaged in violence and destruction, said Acting U.S. Attorney Anders Folk in a statement. The arson, quote, put lives at risk and contributed to widespread lawlessness in Minneapolis. Robinson pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit arson. 3 other men, Bryce Michael Williams, Devon DeAndre Turner, and Brandon Michael Wolf pleaded guilty to the same charge as part of a plea agreement. They have yet to be sentenced. Robinson's lawyer, who is representing all four men, said the 23-year-old has been unfairly singled out among thousands of others involved in the riots last year. He is bearing the sentence for the other 1,000 people who participated, Attorney William Mousy told the New York Times on Wednesday. Many others far more culpable than Mr. Robinson were not identified. Yeah, dipshit, that would be the problem right there. Your client was identified. How will the fine be paid? In nickels and license plates. In addition to his 4-year jail term, Robinson has been fined $12 million in damages. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, which has prosecuted the case, the restitution will be collected in a variety of ways, including wages, bank accounts, retirement garnishments, and a monthly pay plan typically set by a judge. Robinson will only be able to pay a minuscule amount towards that, his lawyer said. None of the defendants have ability to pay significant sum. By the way, this is in case they write a book, just in case you're wondering. Dude, nobody was charged. I mean, Greg Kelly obviously is very upset because the burning of the Minneapolis Police Department, 3rd Precinct headquarters, was, people, they brought marshmallows. Nobody got charged in that shit.
Total double standard.
Yeah, total double standard. Hey, I have a question. How many members of the Capitol rioters who assaulted police officers, built a gallows, sought to an attempted murder conspiracy to kill Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi, how many of them have been fined $12 million?
We're so glad you're on the case. So, Tom Fitton, hey, by the way, you got a great book. Let's go ahead and put that up if we can.
You can't. Nah, it didn't work. Mr. Producer, why is the picture not up? It's cut off. You can't even say his name. You left up the thing with the Judicial Watch suit, and it's good information, Mr. Producer. But New York Times bestseller, didn't make the top 10, but it's on the list of 200 top-selling books because they buy it in bulk.
The name of the book, A Republic Under Assault, the left's ongoing...
The irony of that name.
...attack on American freedom. Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. Thank you, sir, very much. To be continued.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Fuck yeah. Those kids, I tell ya.